All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the show. This is the Strength Club podcast. My name is Alex Koesarie. I'm a starting strength coach in the DC area. And today we're talking about how to make your workout shorter and the fact that for most human beings, for most normal human beings, your workouts probably are taking way too long. This is one of the most common things that I'll see whenever I get my hands on somebody new, is that they'll kind of be at the end of their LP, they'll be an early intermediate stage, something like that. They may be even doing a bro split, maybe coming from CrossFit, their workouts end up drifting towards 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Now, this is definitely a bit of a bias from the people who find coaches, the people who try to find and seek out coaching and external programming help. They're already really in it to win it. They're super committed. So they're okay spending 2 hours, 2.5 hours in the gym. There's another school of people who want to train harder, they want to try harder, they want to do better, but they're running into this wall because they have kids, they have a business, they have whatever's going on, and they're like, all right, I just can't commit 90 minutes 4 times a week. I can do it 60 minutes at most. And now there's a ton of videos about this, about how to sort of compress your workouts and how to sort of expedite this whole process, be really time efficient with it. However, most of them don't really have good examples as to what you should actually be doing. Now, the genesis for this is that I had a baby recently. A baby ended up in the NICU, and then I had about 3 weeks of trying to make my workouts as short as humanly possible. Trying to work out 2, maybe 3 times a week, just get in whatever you can, get it done as quickly as you can. Now, I've provided this sort of service to like dozens of clients who have been in similar situations where they need really compressed workouts. And then, it's a tricky thing to manage. So we're going to talk about how to manage that. So let's just get started. Contact information. This is important. My website there, Chase's website. Chase hasn't done the show in a while. Hopefully we can get him back on soon. If you want to get videos on the show, if you've seen Adam and Byron's episodes recently, get those into support at strength.club. Let's see. Boop. Okay. Let's talk about how long workouts normally take. Now, these are sort of just like gross generalizations of what I've seen being in the industry for quite some time. And this is probably pretty agreeable for most people. For like a normal human who goes into the gym, they're probably goofing off in there for an hour to a little bit over an hour. These are people who are not training particularly hard. They may or may not be, but for most human beings who walk in the gym, they're not actually trying very hard. Most of the time, they're texting on the leg press, they're walking on the treadmill for 20 minutes, they're stretching for 10 minutes, maybe getting after that. For the people who are involved in powerlifting, you're a high-calorie man. You're spending 6 minutes of rest between your triples at 315, basically taking a nap in there. Almost all of your workouts are over 100 minutes. A lot of them clear 2 hours. I've had a lot of clients who've come from the powerlifting world who've switched over to grappling, had more my discipline, and then I'll ask them about their workouts, and they're in the gym for over 2 hours, probably 3 to 4 times a week. On the opposite end of that spectrum, you kind of have CrossFit guys, people who are just going in, they have a list of things to do, and then the goal is to get it done as fast as possible, or it's more like rounds for time. Those guys really get after it. A lot of times they only take 45 to 60 minutes. There's a lot of other problems for that sort of school of thought, but the time they spent really isn't one. Now, in terms of what most people are doing, I would say if you're a young man on the internet and I asked you what type of workout you're doing, chances are it's going to be some sort of bro split. And then that's super variable. Some of those guys are in there for 2 hours and they're doing a bunch of, like forced eccentrics. They're doing everything with a bunch of negatives. They're in there with another, let's say 2 or 3 friends. If you think about your recent gym experiences and you see kind of like the hordes of Zoomers with like the broccoli haircut, all of them are on SARMs. Chances are this is what they're doing. Their workouts are taking really long as well. This video really isn't for you. This video is for people who are kind of involved in this sort of starting strength world. They're strength training primarily. If you're doing a hypertrophy style workout, they're basically the same thing, but there's some nuance to it. But this really is for you. So like person who's like doing their LP and they're like, damn, these workouts are starting to take a little bit of time. Or someone who's kind of deep in intermediate. And when you're looking into the future, you're thinking, I don't know how I can sustain this pattern because of how long these workouts are taking, how long I'm trying to train. How long your workout should be, the determining factors for this is going to be, it's going to be a few things, really just 3. It's really going to be total volume, so how much work that you need to get done within that period of time. Now, this implies that you know how much work you need to do before you start that workout. If you are having correct programming, if your programming is proper and correct and true, you should know what you're doing before you go in the gym. For most human beings, a hard workout is somewhere in that 9 to 15 set range. Next thing that determining how long your workouts are is going to be how hard you're going, So if you're pushing every set to 0 reps in reserve, RPE 10, whatever scale to whatever, but it's hard as fuck, everything is like a 3 to 4 second grinder. If that happens, like every single one of your workouts, chances are you're going to get burnt out or you're going to get hurt pretty quickly, unless the volumes are very low, but you're still going to run into that issue. So taking into consideration that you're doing, let's say 100 workouts or so across the year, maybe more than 30 of those you should not be almost dying under the barbell. Okay. Most of those, they should be challenging, but there's a few old Rip interviews where one thing was, he was talking to Kurt Karwoski, or he was talking to Ed Cohn. He was talking about how just leaving a rep on the bar during most of your sort of training blocks and your cycles is a really safe and prudent practice. The numbers will go up slowly, but you don't need to push to a point where you're legitimately concerned about whether or not you're going to be able to re-rack the bar. And then the rest times are going to be functions of your volume and then how hard you're trying. If you're not trying particularly hard and you're doing not terribly much volume, you can have a lot of rest times. You don't need to rest that much. So really, we kind of have those first two. The third one is a function of that. We're going to go through some sample workouts. They're going to get increasingly more complicated. And then also, we're going to talk about ways to shorten them. So if we just kind of have our sample LP workout, 3x5, 3x5, 1x5, kind of a little bit of a longer rest before that deadlift set, you're going to be able to get in and out of there in like 50 to 60 minutes. When it's really easy, you may not even need 3 minutes, but we're talking, let's say you're about a month and a half into it and things are starting to get a little bit hard. You're in this challenging area where you feel like, okay, I did my set, the weight is making me rest. It's not like I'm just doing it because I feel like I have to. You'll end up spending around 22 minutes in total resting between all of these things. Let's say your warm-up for the squat, because it's the first movement, is going to take closer to 10 minutes. The bench press is a shorter warm-up. The deadlift warm-up, there's a lot of setup. You're getting the platform, you're getting the plates, you're getting the bars, all that stuff. It's closer to 8. The blessing here, though, is the deadlift volume is relatively low, so it keeps the whole thing pretty short. This is only 3, 6, 7 working sets for the day. So overall, it's a pretty short workout. More intermediate and advanced guys, like a 7-set workout for them is fucking nothing. This is pretty short, 55 minutes. If you were to ask most people, hey, can you give me an hour 3 times a week? They'd say definitely. Let's move on here. Now, this is a sample intermediate workout. So, let's say you've been lifting for year and a half. You're deep into intermediate territory here. Let's say even a year. That time is pretty arbitrary. But you have a good bit more work to do. So we're looking at that sample of that work now. Okay, so let's say for your squat, we need a top triple at 345, then you're backing down to 315 for sets of 4. You're hitting a pretty stock 5x5 that's not going to be super challenging. Maybe there's 1 rep left on the bar there. And then you're doing 2 sets of rack pulls. You don't know where that volume is going to land because we don't know how hard the squats are going to feel for that day, so that's pretty flexible. And then for chins, we want to get 3 sets done to 0 reps in reserve or to failure at body weight. Okay. Now, things are starting to get hard, so let's say we're at least 4 minutes of rest for our squats and our bench. We're at around 5 minutes of rest for the rack pull set, so leading into set 1 and then rest before set 2. And then we're taking around 3 minutes of rest for set 3. The warm-ups for this, they're going to get a little bit longer, particularly on the rack pull and the bench. The squats are probably going to stay around 10 minutes. We're increasing the set count, and then we're also increasing the rest, so the whole length of the workout's going to go up. A lot of these workouts will balloon up to around 90 minutes. Now, if I prescribe something like this, it's very possible that will take closer to 120. The reasons why, this is because people, let's say if they are using a rest timer, if they are at all, okay, their rest timer is about to go off. They're resting just for 4 minutes, and they're like, okay, all right, I got to roll my sleeves up, I got to put my belt on, I got to chalk, I got to do all these things, I got to slap my face, and then the rest time goes from 4 minutes to 5, maybe 5.5. That's kind of cause number 1. Let's say you're dilly-dallying, Instagram, whatever you're on. Those are the reasons that it should inflate. A general strategy that we'll talk about later is that, when your timer goes off, you want to shut that timer off, and then that is your cue to immediately get under the bar, right? So I can shut mine off with my headphones when I'm using my, when I have the open shock to these guys. Highly recommend, by the way. But I can shut my timers off with my headphones, right? So hands are on the bar, that timer goes off, I shut it off, I immediately get under the bar. That's how you should be thinking about your rest timers. If someone is doing that really rigidly, they're going to get out of one of these workouts in around 90 minutes. So we're already starting to kind of push that sort of negotiation. The time required is going up a good bit. Now, options to shorten this. I am a huge superset fetishist. One of my big influences in training was Charles Poliquin. Most people don't know about him too much anymore. He was a big S&C guy. He was a really influential name in the background, and he was a big fan of supersets and then antagonistic supersets. He died young. He did a ton of steroids and I think speed, like early Adderall, things like that, because he was working 20 hours a day for a few decades. So rip to a real one, Charles, when you're up there. But supersets, essentially we have two movements and then we're alternating back and forth between them. These are going to be your number one key for kind of pulling the workout total time down. We're going to take the same workout that we had before. So this workout here, same exact thing. We're actually going to add a set onto it, and then we're still going to come out 15-ish minutes shorter, okay? What we're going to do here is we're actually going to start with bench press. Okay, bench press, it's a relatively lighter movement. It's not so mentally taxing, which means you can kind of get into your working sets a little bit sooner. So we're going to start with the bench press. We're going to use the rest periods of your bench to warm up for your squat. And you may be saying, all right, I can't use a rack and I can't monopolize a bench and a rack at the same time. Or if I'm working out at home, I can't, squat in the same rack that I'm benching and I only have one bar. There's a ton of things that you can do to warm your lower body up that are not. Got to shrink myself here. There's a ton of stuff that you can be doing to warm your lower body up that is not heavy barbell squatting, right? So during those benches, if you do a few sets of 10 of bodyweight squats, you do some lunges, you do some toe touches, you take a spare 45-pound plate, you do some goblet squats. If you do a few rounds of that, okay, during your 5 bench set rest periods, your squat warm-up afterwards is going to be way shorter. It's going to feel way smoother. You may be thinking, well, normally my squat warm-up feels like trash, because most of the time you just get out of the car, it's cold, you walk straight into the gym, you start squatting the empty bar. Okay, let's say it's a cold morning, it's 5 a.m., you go down to the basement, you start trying to squat, everything's creaky, everything's stiff. It's going to feel like trash. We're going to go upper body first here, and then we're going to integrate that lower body warm-up into that more gentle upper body movement. Okay. Now we hit our superset. So we're supersetting, we're alternating two movements. We're going to talk about the squat and the chin up here. They won't really interfere with each other too much. I've never failed a squat because my lats are tired. I've never failed a squat because my biceps are tired. It would be cool if I did, but I have not. So what we're going to do is we're going to squat. We're going to rest 90 seconds. We're going to do our chin up. Then we're going to rest 2 minutes. Then we're going to do our squat. You'll get into a groove with it. You may not need an actual timer the whole time. Something I like to do is if you can just leave your stopwatch running and then you place it in front of you, keep your screen on, you can kind of just get a feel for what sort of pacing you're looking for. We can get all of that done. Now, if we notice the last workout, we have 3 sets of chins on the board, and then all of those chins are to failure. That's a true 0 reps in reserve failure each time. This time we're going to do 4 sets, but we're going to leave a little bit in the tank, okay? Because I don't want you breathing too hard going into your squat. If you take chin-ups to true failure, you're grinding, it's 3.5 seconds to get your chin over the bar. It's really hard. That may actually just gas your lungs for your squats. I don't really want that. So we're going to leave a little bit in the tank, but you're going to add a set to compensate for that, and we're still going to come out ahead on time, okay? Now at this point, you'll notice that the rack pull, third movement still. However, rack pull, it's a big lat movement, it's a big back movement. Your lats are already going to be warm for those chins, or can be from the chins. So your rack pull warm-up is going to be a little bit shorter as well. And now one thing about just kind of moving pretty constantly, I tell a lot of my lifters, I don't want you just sitting down and laying down on the floor. Go take a lap around the gym, go do something. Your sets will tend to go better the more relatively warm you are, right? So we have, these 4 rounds of squats and chins of a lot of general movement. Those rack pulls, you may not have had the rest from the bench press, but you're going to be way more warm. You're going to feel limber. You're going to feel good going into it. And then now, if we go back to this, and then we say, hey, we have our squat, we have our bench, then our rack pulls. The reps for the rack pull may have been 5 and 5 here, and the reps for the rack pull may be 5 and then 4 here, or they may be 4 and 4, right? However, if it's between cutting the volume off entirely, not doing it or not going to the gym because your workout was going to take too long, losing a rep on a rack pull is totally fine. Losing one on that deadlift is totally fine. What we're looking for is to figure out how to slot the workout into your life. That's what you're trying to do. If you can't do that because of the scheduling, because of how long it takes, it's not really good. So even if the reps fall off a little bit, like we said with our chin up here, or like we said with our rack pull, it's okay. You're getting the workout done faster. That's kind of really what matters here. Now, if you want to shorten it even more, okay, a lot of my clients do this. Out of my 40-some clients, I probably have off the top of my head, I want to say 15 to 18 of them doing something similar to this, because they're busy, they're dads, it's starting strength, they're a very fertile group, all of them have 3 to 5 kids, they're busy as hell. A lot of tech guys, a lot of business owners, things like that. They don't have really long to work out. They have under an hour to work out, and most of the time they're intermediate lifters. They need kind of do a lot of work here. Normally I'll run kind of 2 supersets as their workouts. Sometimes, generally no more than 3. Sometimes it can be like one big entree of a lift, so like just deadlifts and then a superset, or just bench and then a superset. But if you want to shorten it even more, right? Because remember, we went from 90-ish minutes, same exact volume, down to 75 minutes. If I want to shorten it down to like 50 minutes again, which is the same length as our LP workout, you're really going to have to hustle here. You are going to have to hustle. So we can do that same exact superset between chin-ups and squats. And then the second movement, we can say, all right, what's another movement that I can pretty conveniently do in an area with the rack pulls? I can do rack pulls and dips, right? You can use the second bar. You can use some dip handles. You can use some rings. There's a million ways to use dips if you're at home. You can use 2 chairs. Dips are like they're a relatively low setup, low space requirement movement, which is why I really like them. So in this situation, we can just run 2 supersets. And then one thing that you'll notice here is that we have 5 sets of dips on the board, but only 2 sets of rack pulls. So that means you can start doing your dip working sets while you're doing your rack pull warm-ups. So you put, no one starts a rack pull 135, but you start 225, you do a set of dips. You go up to 275, you do a set of dips. You go to 315, do a set of dips, so on and so forth, until you get to your working set. Then maybe even for these working sets, you take a break from the dips, and then you do the dips when you're cleaning up afterwards. So you have some flexibility in there. But like the warm-up time for dips and chin-ups, maybe you do 1 set. Maybe, and then let's say if you're at a big commercial gym and then you're not strong enough to do these things, this could be like a lat pull down and a push up. This could be a lat pull down, or this could be, like a dumbbell row and then a dumbbell bench. This could be a bench machine that's near the squat rack. This could be another hammer strength row machine. You have a lot of flexibility with it. No one is saying these things are optimal. If your goal is like as much weight on the bar as possible, this isn't optimal. But if you need to get your workouts done as quickly as possible, your priority order has changed here. So instead of going from most weight, we're now shifting to get some decent amount of work in for a short period of time. So workouts like this, we can pull the time down basically in half. Like if you're really hustling on this, and then, you're changing the plates quickly, you're not dilly-dallying, you're barely on your phone, you're not listening to a podcast, you're just listening to music, you can cut a workout down, like an intermediate workout, from 90 minutes down to 45. And this isn't something that you have to do all the time. So I don't tell my lifters, you have to do this for every single workout no matter what. But if they're saying, hey, I got an extra meeting slammed on me for Friday, I still need to get a lift in, my normal workout takes 2 hours, how can I cut this down? You can do something like this. Now, these sorts of workouts, you're going to be breathing heavy, and there's going to be an acclimation period, which is why you should never really get yourself terribly out of shape. It's like if you're getting winded walking up 2 flights of stairs, these workouts are not for you. You should probably be doing something else. Go take a walk around the block, put the fork down a little bit. If you have like a decent cardio capacity, you've been training for a while, you can do heavy sets of squats, your heart gets going, but you don't feel like you're going to collapse afterwards, you'll probably be fine. You just need to make sure that you're not doing the second movement immediately after the first, right? So I don't re-rack the bar for the squat, step back, and then immediately grab the bar for the chins. That's too much. That's too much for someone who's in shape like me. You want to give yourself close to 90 seconds, even if we do 2 minutes here. So if we do, instead of 90 seconds, second movement, 2 minutes, first movement, even if we do 2 minutes, 2 minutes, you're still getting functionally like 5 minutes between squat and squat. So it's really not terribly tiring. Like your legs should be refreshed by then. Okay. And then even if you introduce these sorts of workouts and then you notice, hey, I've done this, had to do workouts for this for about a month, because of how busy work is, I'm an accountant and it's tax season. All of my workouts are really short for like 2 months. You'll get in shape by the end of it, and then you'll be able to ride that wave for a while, and all of a sudden these workouts aren't going to be that hard. Though they should be hard in terms of like effort, but you're not going to be bottlenecked by cardio. Okay. It's actually really rare for a lifter to be bottlenecked by cardio. If you're like a 55-year-old guy and then your cardio is playing 9 holes in the back end, this may be a little bit of a hard sell for you, but you can get it done, and you should get it done so your heart doesn't explode. And then we'll go for just some personal examples. This was an example, so all of these were sort of arbitrary fake examples. This was one of my workouts whenever my baby, if you've heard him squeaking over there through the course of this show, this is one of the workouts that I was doing whenever I would come home to shower real quick, get some work done, eat some food. I would run to the gym for 30 minutes and I would get something like this done. So we have basically a large superset, and I'm doing the deadlift. The deadlift is the entree. That's like the main thing that I'm here to do. And I need to think, what can I do that is right next to the deadlift, using some of the gear and equipment from the deadlift, right? So I have a bunch of bumper plates all around me, and I have these plates. Great, I can do deficit push-ups. A push-up pretty hard. If you add a deficit to it, you add another 8 inches of range of motion. If you have flexible shoulders like me, you can put some weight on it. It's a great movement. If we think about our starting strength 3 criteria, this hits long range of motion, a ton of muscle mass, and a decent amount of weight that you can add on because you're moving your body weight plus whatever's on your back. So I did kind of ascending sets of 5, 225, 75, 315, and 365. I had a practice single at 405. Then the main event of the day was just one open-ended set at 405. I was like, I'm just going to pull 405 till it doesn't move. I ended up getting 10. And then in between all of these deadlifting sets, I'm doing deficit push-ups. So here are my rep counts. Like I did 12, 8, and 7, then 10 and 8, and then I did a drop set where I did just normal deficit push-ups, then normal floor push-ups, and some push-ups on my knees, and that was no rest between them. I got 16, 14, and 8. This whole thing took me from going into the gym, claiming my platform, to putting all of my plates away and leaving in 30 minutes. Okay? And then I can tell you at the end of the 30 minutes, I was absolutely wrecked, right? It's a lot of work done in a very short period of time. And, if you think about, like, if someone put a gun to your head and say, hey, make as much muscle mass as you can in one workout. You have 30 minutes, go. You would do something like this. Okay. It would be something like, hey, I'm barely resting more than 90 seconds at any given time. I'm doing really hard things that use a lot of muscle mass. Okay. What I don't want to see is, like, let's say if this was squat and I'm doing squat and like lateral raises and I'm doing rack pulls and some abs, right? Those supersets, that's not actually that effective, right? You're not really picking a second movement that is robust enough to really do anything, and it's functionally no longer supersets, and you're just kind of dilly-dallying in between. So like, let's say if we did bench, then we did squat, and then superset it into this was like overhead press, right? Let's say I only had 3 sets of bench to do. I needed to get some overhead press in. If we did squat and press is a pretty hard movement, right? You're just unloading all the plates. You're pressing, you're putting the plates back on. That's a good workout, right? We kind of have these higher priority movements. So you want to pick something that's more like this. So I say, hey, I'm making the best of my situation. If your gym, your commercial gym, has your deadlift platform right next to the dumbbell racks, guess what you can do? You can do dumbbell bench instead, right? Let's say you have a dip station right next to your deadlift platforms. There you go. Bang those 2 out. You kind of need to think about who you are, what your purpose of these things is, and then, why you're in this situation. If you're in a situation like me where it's like super time compressed, this workout is absolutely great. If you're super lazy and you're like, all right, I can't stand like lifting for more than 30 minutes, you're not going to have the gumption to finish a workout like this. This is a really hard 30 minutes, right? So if you're thinking, hey, I just can't mentally stand being in the gym for more than 30 minutes, why are you watching this? Most people who watch these sorts of things, they really love being in the gym like all of us. So think, these are only sort of cards that you play as needed. This is not something you do year-round. Something that you do year-round is more of like a relaxing tempo like this, like our first one, where it can take 90 minutes. And then we're being nice and lazy. We're taking 4 minutes, 5 minutes between some things. That's a really good workout for kind of, like existing in perpetuity. That's not something that we really need to have compressed, right? If I need to compress it a little bit, let's say I'm a little bit short on time, then I can add that superset between my squats and my chins. If I need to compress it even more, I'm going to change my movements and I'm going to run 2 supersets. And if I need to compress it even more, I'm going to just do one kind of big, terrible superset of death where it's deadlifts and then one of those things. It's squats and it's one of the other things, And then you have a lot of flexibility here. Let's say you're like, hey, I'm getting 5 hours of sleep a night. I have no time to lift at all. I have like 30 minutes tops. Heavy squats are going to fucking kill me, right? Do overhead press, and then you can do some lunges. Do overhead press and some leg press. Do overhead press, then, maybe some front squats because it's a little bit easier, You need to remember that whenever you're trying to shorten these workouts, you're no longer asking for optimal for what going to be the biggest bang for your buck on strength gains. What you're asking for is something that can be a lot of stimulus. It can help me grow some muscle, help me get a little bit stronger, and can be done in a really short period of time. Hopefully this was helpful for everybody. Let me know in the comments. I know Adam and Byron have been doing an excellent job. Hopefully I'll hop back on those soon once our schedules link up. We have a few time zones and then a very precious baby over there in the corner. So scheduling is a little bit hard. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments and then what we're hoping to see next. Thanks.